Hello, Music Con Brio first year students. This is Miss Elspeth with a new practice video for you to learn movement 2 of our composer Brad's piece Illusions. Now, if you remember, in the fourth movement, there are lots of exciting rhythms and tiny notes like TTs, and not a lot of whole notes, big notes. Movement 2 is very different than movement 4 in that there are lots of long, sustained legato notes. And if you remember, legato means long and connected. And the longest note that we know right now is a whole note, which lasts for 4 beats. In this movement, there are going to be lots of whole notes connected together sometimes. So you might play 2 whole notes but using 1 bow. And so it's going to be a long bow. So you have to be really careful to use your bow really slowly and carefully so that you can fit all the beats into 1 bow. And you can do that by watching the leader and making sure that you're moving your bow at the same speed that they are. And also that you're counting the number of beats that you need to play in your head. Now in this piece, or in this movement rather, there's going to be a new note that we have never played before to learn. If you look at your tapes on your fingerboard, you probably have 3 or 4 of them. The first tape is closest to the scroll, to the peg box. That's where your first finger goes. This finger is your first finger. We are going to be playing with our second fingers, our number 2 finger, on the second tape. So, if you're counting the tapes up from the peg box, it'll be tape number 1 will be where your first finger goes, and tape number 2 will be a little bit higher. Let me put my violin up and show you what your 2 will look like. It'll look like this. And you'll play this high 2 on your G string, and it will sound like this. So can you all find your high 2s, your 2s on the tape, on the G string, and play it with me to make sure that it matches? Here we go. Find your 2. Ready, go. Did it sound like mine? If it didn't, move your finger onto the tape. Maybe it's a little low or a little high. And don't forget to have your nice rabbit hole and no pizza hand, because you won't be able to play your high 2 in tune if you have a pizza hand. So make sure you have a nice straight wrist. This is in first position, and if you have to do your elevators first, and your peg knockers, that's okay. Do your elevators and peg knockers. And get your hand in a good first position on the magic X. Find your 2 on your 2 tape on the G string. And now, play it with me and see if it matches. It's a pretty note, huh? It's exciting. Brand new note. Thanks, Composer Brad. Okay, so in this movement, along with lots of long notes that are held for many, many beats, we're also going to have long measures of rest that we will be standing and waiting while other people are playing their parts. And to do this very professionally, you'll have to be counting in your head and also watching the leader. The leader will put their violin up, and when the leader puts their violin up, you put your violin up. And when the leader gives a cue, you will have to play with the leader. And it's going to be distracting. It's going to be lots of exciting things going on and lots of people playing really cool stuff. But you have to have that laser focus and make sure that you're playing your part of the music at the right time with the leader. So, the very first note of this piece will come after 4 measures of rest. Now this movement is in the time signature or meter of 4/4. And if you remember, that means that there are 4 beats in every measure, and the quarter note, or the ta, gets the beat. So to hold these 4 measures of rest, you'll have to count to 4 in your head 4 times, and be watching the leader also. Okay, so when the leader puts their violin up, you put your violin up. So let's practice doing that. Good job. Okay, now we'll have our 4 measures of rest. Then we're going to play our 2 on the G string. So be getting ready during the 4 measures of rest. We'll put our violins up nice and early. We'll get our hands into good first position on the magic X. Set up your 2. And we have a nice long time to do this. And then we will hold this note for 8.5 beats, or 2 whole notes and a T. So, and then we will have 3 beats of rest, 8 beats of open D, 2 beats of rest, and 6.5 beats of open E, 3 beats of rest, and 8 beats of open D. So I am going to play and count at the same time, and then I'll do it twice. I'll do it one time for you to listen and for you to sing with me if you want to. And then I'll do it again for you to play with me. So we'll have our 4 measures of rest. Get your nice 2 set up on the tape. Make sure no pizza hand. Nice rabbit hole. First position. And we are going to play this high 2 on the G string for 8.5 beats. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. Rest, rest. Half note. Hold that whole note. T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. Okay, and that's the first little chunk. I'll do it again now for you to play with me. So don't forget, there's 4 measures of rest at the beginning. Go ahead and do your elevators. Get your nice 2, get your nice first position hand, and your 2 set up on the G string. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. Rest, rest. Half note. Hold that whole note. T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. Now we will have 2 measures of rest, and we'll play the 2 on the G string again. So in these 2 measures of rest, get your nice 2 set up on the G string, and make sure that you keep your hand in first position throughout that whole first section. Did you notice how I didn't put my hand back up in umbrella position? Because I want to be ready for the 2 to come back. So here's how the next section of the song goes, and it's going to be a 2 and then a D. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. Dotted half T. Now we have 2 measures of rest and a very long open D. So make sure you use your bow really carefully and don't use it all up at once in a really fast way. Make sure that you move the bow slowly over the string so that you can fit all the beats into one bow. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note. Hold that whole note. dotted half T. Now we have 4 measures of rest, and we're going to hold an open G for the same exact amount of time that we just did the D. So 2 whole notes, a dotted half note, and a T at the end. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, dotted half T. And that is the whole entire second movement. So I am going to play the whole thing from beginning to end for you to listen to and sing with and count with me. I'll count out loud while I'm playing, and then you can play along if you like. I won't count all the measures of rest when there are huge chunks of rest like 4 measures or 2 measures, but I'll tell you there are 2 measures of rest here, and then you can practice maybe counting those measures of rest or getting ready to play when I give the cue. Okay, so here's at the beginning. You have to find your nice first position hand. And it starts on a 2. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, half rest, half note, hold that whole note, T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note. Now we have 2 measures of rest, and in these 2 measures, get your 2 ready on the G string. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, T. Rest, rest, rest. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, dotted half T. Now you have 2 measures of rest and a very long D. So get ready to play the D when I give the cue. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, dotted half T. Now we have 4 measures of rest, and get ready to play the G when I give the cue. Same amount of time as that D. Ready? Go. Hold that whole note, hold that whole note, dotted half T. And there you have it, the entire long sustained second movement of Illusions. Happy practicing, everybody.